Deion Sanders introduced as the 28th full-time head coach in Colorado football history. Brian, we've experienced quite a bit on this beat. The intro press conference for primetime was a little different than anything we've experienced before.
That was unlike anything I've seen. I mean, just from the buzz before he even got here to, the reception as soon as he walked in the room. The reactions to some of what he was saying, just his personality, all that stuff. As we're standing here, I was thinking it was 8 days ago. You and I stood just right over there and did a video after a 63-21 loss. And just kind of, the despair we had. And, it's quite a change 8 days later. The energy that was in the touchdown club today is something that we haven't, I don't think we felt it in a long time. And certainly that press conference was, I joked with Rick George, I said, that's top 3 most energetic press conferences I've been around. He goes, oh, that's number 1. I'm like, I know. It's by far number 1.
Yeah. And when you've done this gig for a long period of time, you realize you learn to separate kind of your personal feelings about things, and you become a professional. This is a case where I had to remind myself coming down here, this is a job. This is not, but had you told teenage Brian Howell or teenage Adam Munsterteiger that we're going to be interviewing or asking a question to Deion Sanders, I don't think my version of myself as a teenager would have believed that. What about you?
Yeah, probably the same thing. And, it just felt surreal. Like, to your point, we've been doing this long enough that I don't really get starstruck, and I did early in my career. But there's a couple moments in my career where you get a little starstruck. And I don't think I had that today, but it was still just sitting there, and, where he stood at the podium, he was like right in front of you and I was just sitting there looking, I'm like, Deion Sanders is actually wearing buff gear and like he's the head coach of this team. And it was more of like just the unbelief of this is actually happening more so than, oh my gosh, it's Deion Sanders. But but all of it together is like, is this really happening? What's going on right now? And it is.
We've gotten a lot of congratulations, Adam and Brian. You get to cover Coach Sanders, and this is such a great thing. I kind of want to turn it around on the fans. The fans that were still engaging with us, and as frustrated as some of those fans might have been here the last few years, they stuck through this program through some really dark times, and those fans, those are the ones that really deserve this.
Yeah, for sure. Not really you and I. It's those Buff fans that that pay their money and pay their dues as a fan to go through what they go through. And you and I have talked about it. It's been tough to cover this team at times, and this year maybe one of the more difficult seasons we've covered. Just it's tough, but at the same time, at least from my perspective, I'm still covering sports. I'm still covering college football, and I'm still writing. That's what I love to do, and we're still around, really good young men that even if they weren't winning football games, I enjoy talking to. And so it wasn't the worst thing in the world to be covering this team. As a fan though, I imagine when you're paying the money that it costs for tickets and parking and all that stuff and gear, you're emotionally invested, probably more so than you and I are, probably almost definitely more so than you and I are. And so, I'm more happy for those fans than for us. Our job's going to change. There's no question, but in a lot of ways it stays the same.
Deion Sanders is the coach for less than 24 hours, and they pull in a 5-star recruit. Now, he's a class of 2025 recruit, so it's going to be a couple years before he get on campus. But I do think that is an early sign of things to come around here. They're not all going to be 5-star guys. There's only about 30 of those nationally every year, so Buff fans, don't expect every CU commit to be a 5-star. There's going to be 4 stars and some 3 stars in there as well. But the influx of talent that's going to be coming in to this program, playing down on that field over there, is something that you'd have to go back to the heyday of Colorado football, which we weren't around to cover that. So that part of it is going to be drastically different.
Yeah, for sure. And, again, to your point, it's a 2025 commit. We'll see. That's 3 years from now, right? Well, 2.5. So we'll see. To me, the bigger thing was, a lot of these fans with all the hype building, there was a lot of CU fans that watched that SWAC title game yesterday, and they're watching Jackson State and Shadeur Sanders, do his thing. Today, for me, the biggest thing was when, Deion Sanders has Shadeur stand up and he goes, "That's your quarterback." And I'm like, huh, all right. I mean, you kind of suspect that, but I mean, for him to say that, blatantly in that press conference, I'm sure has to get CU fans like, wow. I mean, they just watched that guy, throw 4 touchdown passes yesterday and 32 on the year. They watched a collection of 4 guys throw 10 touchdown passes in 12 games. So, yeah. That's the immediate thing we're going to see is Shadeur Sanders coming in here. Who else are going to bring from Jackson State? What are the transfer portal guys? So, yeah, it's going to be an immediate impact. Unlike, I made no bones about the fact that Bronco Mendenhall was my top choice. There's nobody, including Bronco Mendenhall, that would have the kind of juice in recruiting in the transfer portal like Deion Sanders is going to have here.
And I've had a few people ask me, why would Deion Sanders take the Colorado head coaching job? And there's a lot of reasons why. Yeah. And I think Shadeur Sanders being able to come play for his father at the Power 5 level is among those reasons. He had kind of done what you can do as a quarterback at the SWAC, the offensive player of the year, winning as many games as they did the last couple of seasons. And so it makes a lot of sense. It was against an FCS defense in Southern, but they're watching Shadeur Sanders yesterday, and I'll admit I hadn't tuned into a lot of Jackson State games until yesterday. I don't think it's a stretch to say that young man does some things that a quarterback has not done in Boulder in quite some time, at least as long as I've been covering the program.
Yeah, and I'll admit I haven't watched a lot, and I didn't get to watch yesterday because I covered the high school state championships, but I'll go back and watch. But I've seen a little bit of him, and yes, the things he's doing, the numbers he's putting up, we haven't seen like that around here. And it is against FCS, but you have to imagine that Deion is going to surround his son with some pretty talented players. Now you got to get some linemen, and you got to get some people around him in the trenches, especially. But Buff fans had to be excited watching Shadeur Sanders do his thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They have 20 verbal commitments in the 2023 class. Mike Sanford and his staff, they were told, continue to recruit, and they did that, and they pulled in commitments with no permanent head coach. And so I would think that they're going to honor those scholarships, but at the same time, you also need some spots for these blue chippers that Deion Sanders is going to be going after, and the transfer portal opens up on Monday for FBS non-graduates. I just have a feeling it's going to be every day players coming and going into this program for a little while.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned honoring the commitments. I thought about that, and I would not be surprised if all of a sudden in the next couple of weeks we see a bunch of those commits decommit. And I don't know who they would be, but and that's just my thought, right? Is this if he comes in with his coaching staff, they evaluate the guys that are committed, and they might think, hey, that guy's not what we want, and so you could see a lot of that over the next couple of weeks. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how much of that commitment list actually signs on signing day. What guys are not currently committed that all of a sudden commit or transfer here. So yeah, I mean, over the next month and a half, before the January semester starts, I think you especially because you cover recruiting more than I do, you're gonna be very busy.
Yeah. And there are really good players in that 2023 class. So you would definitely hope they don't they're not going to do that. They're not going to just scrap that whole class. And Armand Hawkins made a big splash joining the recruiting staff, bringing out really highly regarded California kids. That's something that when you look at Deion Sanders in his past, Florida and the South, and it'll be interesting to see how the staff around him shakes out in terms of their recruiting ties. But they might need a guy like Hawkins, to stay on staff to bring in that California talent. And then huge credit to Chandler Durrell. His father gets fired on October 2nd and shows tremendous maturity, and he helped them bring in top 100 California guys, like I mentioned, in that stretch without having a permanent head coach. And I don't know if I was in his shoes, if I could be that professional. I was really, really impressed with him.
Yeah, and it shows integrity that you're still getting a paycheck, and so you're going to put in your best work, right? It's what we saw from Mike Sanford openly over the last 8 weeks, but it's guys like Chandler behind the scenes and it's harder for Chandler than it is for some of those coaches, right? When it's your father, and so it sort of reminds me a little bit of Cody Hawkins several years ago when his father gets fired with 3 games left. He was a stand-up guy, and put his best foot forward, put his best effort for the Buffs as long as he was still here. Chandler Durrell did the same thing, and so you got to commend him. A lot of people on this staff, honestly, through some trying times, and even today they still don't know what their status is.
Coach Prime, we expected him to be extremely charismatic today. He was even a little bit more personable and charismatic than I anticipated. Yeah. It's one of those guys that I can see why he's a rock star with recruiting, not just because of his fame, but that personality in your living room. How do you say no to that guy?
Yeah, well, if he wants a guy, he's not leaving that living room without getting the yes, right? That's just his personality. You can see it's the stuff that we grew up watching him as a player, right? And you see the kind of the bravado on the field, and some people get annoyed with that. That's part of what made him such an amazing player, is he carried himself with that confidence, and he's had it all along. And he makes the comment like, I've been primed for a long time, and he's right. I mean, that's who he is now. It's not a show, I don't believe, because that's just been him for so long. He's been a celebrity that, yeah, I agree with you. The energy from him and the charisma from him today was a little bit even more so than I probably thought.
We've heard that he likes the outdoors, likes to fish. Maybe not in the coming months when it's kind of cold around here, but I would imagine that he's going to fall in love with just how much there is to do in Colorado and the scenic beauty of everything. And I guess we'll finish the video with this: is the concern, the one thing that you would say if you're a pessimist about this whole thing is, well, how long is Deion Sanders going to be around here? I think that if you're a Colorado fan, given where this program has been, you just enjoy the ride.
Yep.
And if it's 2 years, it's 2 years. And if he gets another Power 5 opportunity, it's because he was successful here.
Yep.
And you hope it doesn't happen in February, like what happened with Mel Tucker. But aside from that would be my answer to anybody that's worried about him leaving after being here a short period of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've expressed those concerns as well with this, that he strikes me as a guy that could be, if he finds success, he could be gone quickly. Maybe I drank a little Kool-Aid today, but I thought less of that today. But again, the same thing. If he does, just enjoy it. I mean, and if he does, it's probably because he did pretty well here and he elevated the program. And he's gonna bring guys here. He's gonna bring attention here. I wouldn't be surprised if game day makes a stop in Boulder next year just to check out. I mean, if they're seeing all this right now, they're probably already thinking, all right, are you kidding me? The first home game, Nebraska, who cares what they do against TCU the week before? ESPN might be looking at that saying, we want to be in Boulder for that atmosphere. At least I would be thinking that if I was ESPN. But, what he's going to bring to this program, whether he's here for 1 year or 8 or 10 or whatever, is going to be unlike we've seen in the past.
It's been lonely on this beat covering some really bad football teams, and now overnight, it's just a complete 180. Yeah. You ready for this?
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but hey, I guess it's what we've sort of been asking for. I mean, all year we kind of complain, like, I don't know about complain, but sort of that, hey, this is a hard team to cover. And, I kind of joked to you, I mean, literally 2 weeks ago yesterday, they're in Seattle, and I'm the only one in the press conference. It's me and Mike Sanford and me and Montana Lamonius Craig talking about that 54-7 loss, and it felt lonely for me. And I'm like, can somebody else ask a question? There's not anybody there to ask a question. And today, it was pretty short, and we only got one question each. You and I got the first couple questions, which is nice, but like, even had they said only one, I'm not sure we would have got more than one had they gone longer, because there were so many people here that might have asked questions. So that's what was nice, is there was a lot of options for people to ask questions today.
Yeah, as long as he's here, you're not going to be alone ever again, Brian.
Right.
All right, that is the beginning of the Coach Prime era in Boulder.